A 3-hour standoff, more than 300 people trapped, desperate for help before police arrive and kill the gunman. We're live in Orlando with family members still desperately seeking answers.
Dozens of bodies slowly removed overnight from Pulse Nightclub in Orlando. You're looking live at the area where a gunman shot and killed 50 people, wounding 53 others early yesterday morning. Omar Mateen opened fire inside that club, taking hostages. Good morning, everyone. You know, they say they thought the sound of gunfire was just part of the loud music, part of the show that night. Shots erupted at Pulse Nightclub around 2 a.m. Sunday. Bruce is now joining us live. He's in Orlando outside Pulse Nightclub following the latest developments. Bruce.
Jen, there is a massive police presence just a couple of blocks down the street in the Pulse Nightclub, where they are combing through the crime scene where at least 50 people are dead. New information, 22 bodies have been positively identified, 53 others being treated at the hospital, though there is unconfirmed word that some of those may have suffered fatal gunshot wounds, and the police have yet to tell us whether or not the casualty rate is going to rise.
We are learning much more about Omar Mateen himself. We know he was born in New York, but he's from Fort Pierce, which is about 120 miles away from where I'm standing.
I want to step out of the way and point out the hospital to you. This is Orlando Health. This is where several of the victims were taken. We know that 53 people were injured, so many of them are most likely in this hospital. And we have seen dozens of cars showing up this morning, pulling into that parking garage and going into that hospital. And I anticipate that they are probably checking on their loved ones.
One of the many questions being asked in the wake of the massacre, why did it take SWAT 3 hours to storm the nightclub? Joining us now is News4JAX crime and safety analyst Gil Smith. Gil, good morning to you. We've seen hostage negotiations before here in our area, and quite frankly, they can take even longer than that. 3 hours too long?
No, it's not unusual, like you said. Sometimes they can be 4, 5, 6 hours or even longer. We never hear about them in Jacksonville because quite often they end without incident, so we don't know that they're occurring.
What should you do even before you get there to assess the situation in case something does happen? Robin O'Pry was there for a midnight drag show. She left right at 2 a.m., literally at 2 a.m., just minutes before those shots rang out. And she joins us live this morning. And you're shaking right now because you just found out a friend you were there with, that one of the people that you all were there with, you had just shaken his hand, you had said bye to him, that he didn't make it.
He didn't make it. Just found out this morning. As we were leaving, my friend Rodnell said, let's stop by and say goodbye to Martin real fast, and we did, and shook hands, and I, met him, and now he's not alive.
It's hard this morning, I can imagine. I mean, you were there, you were in the middle of it. Now you're 2 hours north. How do you kind of cope through it today as the news come out and more people we find out were killed?
It's hard. It's really hard. I remember yesterday when it went from 20 to 50. I couldn't breathe. I was right there. I don't know what was watching over us that morning, but it makes me wonder, a little bit of why me, but it's almost like a second chance to really appreciate, everything around me. And you really don't know when somebody could just take your life away.
It's the reality so many of us are having this morning, and we appreciate you coming in and talking with us, and know that you are not alone, because we know that we continue to grieve this massacre that is very difficult to cope with. So don't do it alone. Thank you, Robin, for coming in. We appreciate it.
That breaking news alert here in Orlando. Investigators and city officials gathering right behind me, talking about the latest on the investigation.
Just a few minutes ago, I asked the prison ombudsman to declare a state of emergency for the state of Florida. I did that yesterday for Orlando, Orange County, and the mayor did it yesterday for the city. When you stop and think about this, we all think about, thank God it wasn't our family. But if you go through that list of family members, we have a lot of individuals from Puerto Rico. We have a wonderful Puerto Rican community. I have a young lady, KJ Morris, that just moved here from Hawaii to take care of her mother and grandmother. I have an individual that Louis Velma that works at Harry Potter, and I was just there last week. So you think these are people that we interact with every day of our lives.
There are so many different accounts, eyewitness accounts from family and friends who actually talked to the victims who were inside of the Pulse nightclub. We spoke to a man who actually talked to the bartender of Pulse nightclub, a guy by the name of Chris Inza. He's a UCF student. He is good friends with a bartender named Jordan. Jordan was serving a drink to a young woman when all of a sudden Mateen came in and started opening fire. He was shot 3 times, twice in the arm, once in the shoulder. Here's what he told us earlier about his visit to the hospital to visit his friend who was fighting for his life.
As I went to the hospital, you see people that were coming out of the hospital in tears, just person after person coming out in tears because obviously the worst has happened. So I went in and thankfully they patted me down to make sure that there was nothing that you can't have in the hospital. And then when I went in there and I talked to Rodney, he told me the whole story. Just to see him sitting there and to see how tragic that situation was it was a relief to see him, but it's just so sad to see that this happened to him.
Here at the Senior Center off Orange Avenue here, where families are starting to pull in. That's where they've been asked to come by police, kind of a staging center for them. And it's families who don't know how their loved one is doing. They're kind of all waiting around outside, dispersed. All the families yesterday were gathering at ORMC, the hospital, as well as the hotel that was nearby there. But they've been directed here for the updates. So far, families, again, like I said, are just really parking and kind of just standing outside again, not knowing what's going on. 50 people are dead. Just a few names have been released, so still we've got 26 is the most recent count. Again, people just wanting answers.
Ms. Attorney General, thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it.
Of course.
The sheriff said, you know what, this isn't a war zone. We live in a civilized society, but the Pulse nightclub certainly looked like a war zone 26, 27 hours ago.
It sure does inside still, I'm sure. Absolutely. Well, you know, terrorist, this is radical Islam, this is a terrorist. And the goal is to make our lives a war zone. And we're not going to let that happen.
As you can imagine, there was so much blood that was shed. Some of the people were hurt so badly that they may need a number of different surgeries. Thus, the demand for blood is magnificent. People have responded here in Orlando, but One Blood, which is the donation center here in Orlando, is also centered in Jacksonville. And the people of Jacksonville have been coming forward in droves to help with that effort. Channel 4's Ashley Harding has that part of the story. Ashley.
Yes, Bruce, good morning. We are here at the Hyatt downtown where a blood drive for area firefighters and firefighters from everywhere actually are here to donate blood. I'll step out of the way right now. You see those 2 buses right there, those mobile units. Blood is being donated right now inside of them. Remember, there is still very much a need out here. Just a little while ago, we were able to get inside one of those buses and shoot some video. Here, take a look. Now, this all started as part of a convention for hundreds of firefighters from all over the state. They were here in Jacksonville for that convention. This is one of them right here. I'm told this local firefighter had a blood type that is greatly needed. So of course his donation is appreciated. Remember, this all began as a convention here at the Hyatt. They got the news of that tragedy 2 hours south in Orlando. They decided to hold this blood bank for the firefighters. I'm told 8 of those firefighters who were here in Jacksonville for the convention were from Orlando. I spoke to one of them about the anguish and heartache he is feeling. His concern now is helping his brothers and sisters cope with the aftermath, especially those who saw this tragedy firsthand.
Obviously, the shock of it happening is the first thing, and then knowing that your members were safe and at home, and none of our members were injured, and our police officers, our brothers in the other police department and the ambulance services, knowing everyone there was safe. Now we're dealing with the more of the mental aspect of the job, where the post-traumatic stress that we, how we release that stress is one of our main concerns as we move forward in the days, weeks, and months, years to come.
And you hear him there talking about post-traumatic stress as a first responder. That is something that is not discussed enough, if you ask me. But again, blood donations are still needed. This blood bank behind me right here is for firefighters. But of course, the need is still there. And if you are able to donate blood, this is what they're looking for, especially blood donations needed type O negative, O positive, and AB plasma. That blood drive here expected to go till 4 o'clock today. But if you are able to donate, you want to learn how and where, head to our website, news4jax.com. Look for the link.
The breaking news, pictures beginning to emerge of victims of the mass murder at an Orlando nightclub, the deadliest killing rampage in U.S. history. The dead and wounded include at least 2 men from here in Jacksonville. And harrowing new details are coming in from survivors.
And he texted me this morning and said he was okay, but he lost over 20 of his friends.
Video from inside that nightclub posted to social media showed the moments that the first shots rang out. Now investigators are trying to piece together what the gunman was doing every moment before he began killing innocent people. Just within the past hour, the owner of the gun store where Omar Mateen bought his weapons told reporters Mateen passed the background check required by law. We've also learned Mateen tried to buy body armor at another store, but the clerk refused to sell it to him.
That as we learn more about his victims who come from every walk of life, a dancer, an accountant, financial aid representative, 49 people killed, 53 others wounded. We have our team covering every angle, learning more about the victims and where the investigation goes from here. Bruce Hamilton is in Orlando leading our coverage from there. Bruce.
Thank you very much. We stumbled across a journalist who actually got behind the Pulse nightclub to give us a unique perspective of behind the scenes on this investigation. Let me show you this picture briefly now, and I'll explain more about it in just a little bit. If you take a look over on the right, you see a big hole. That hole is where SWAT used that Bearcat to breach the wall and get into the nightclub. And there you see crime scene text. They're going through that wall looking for bullet holes and other evidence. As a matter of fact, the DEA is here, FDLE, and a number of other police agencies, including the FBI, with help from agents from Jacksonville, who are going through the nightclub looking for every shred of forensic evidence they could find. It is a tedious task. It is a task that is likely to take days. As for the shooter, we told you he obtained the guns legally. He is from Fort Pierce in South Florida, Martin County. Channel 4's Chris Parento managed to talk to the gun store owner who sold him the weapons that were used in that massacre. Chris.
Bruce, that gun store owner said if it wasn't his shop, it would have been another shop here locally. But he was very frustrated that the guns used in this massacre did come from this shop here behind me here in Port St. Lucie. ATF agents were out here all day long going through all of the paperwork inside the gun store, the owner even closing the store today, saying that it was not shut down by ATF agents, but that he and his staff made the decision to close the store so they could work and access everything they needed whenever they needed to it without distraction and without interruption. He again reinforced that these guns were bought legally. He estimates the long gun and the handgun both purchased about 5 to 10 days before this massacre happens. He said that he recognized the shooter but didn't know him personally. Again, he's very disappointed that these weapons came from his store.
An evil person came in here and they legally purchased 2 firearms from us. And if he hadn't purchased them from us, I'm sure he would have gotten them from another local gun store in the area.
Pulse nightclub was popular among people in Orlando and from around the state. Channel 4's Jim Pickett joins us now with more on the victims. Jim.
You know, one of the victims, Daryl Burt, he will be remembered for his love for life. He was killed at the Pulse nightclub. Now, he had worked here at Kaiser University here on the south side, and his untimely death will definitely be remembered here. Daryl Burt was involved with several groups in Jacksonville, including the JCs. He spent time here at Kaiser University working with military students and helping them pay for college.
Daryl was a great contributor to the community. He was one of our financial aid officers and worked with our military and veteran students through the financial aid process and helping them through college. Just a great contributor, very involved in the community, respected individual, and he's already very missed.
Burt moved around. He has family in Indiana, but those that know him say he loved it in Jacksonville and was doing work with the community. He was 29 years old.
There are a number of families who don't know the fate of their loved ones, don't know whether or not they are among the dead or those being taken care of and in surgery in the hospital. Channel 4's Heather Lee has that part of the story.
This is the grassy area that has been designated as the memorial, and people have been leaving things throughout the day. You can see that they have left bouquets of flowers, balloons, signs, just about anything they can to help honor these victims.
The words are beginning to flow. Love conquers hate. God bless Orlando. The messages, some longer than others, but one thing is clear. They've all got heart. More love, less hate. They help fill the gap between just names on a list. to who they were as people.
Really kind, smart, and talented. And his life was worth more than this.
This little girl showing sometimes you don't even need words at all. Let's not forget the pictures, the faces. Gilbert Crispin says that's the one thing he can't do.
I still don't believe that all of this is happening, and I still think that we might go out next Saturday and they're going to be with us again. It's unreal, it's unrealistic. It's like it's not happening.
He has 2 friends recovering in the hospital and several others that passed. It's the same story for Josean Garcia, who lost Amanda Alvear and Mercedes Flores.
It's been devastating. I mean, it's a living nightmare for me right now because I can't get the sounds out of my head. I can't get the pictures out of my head. No, I don't want to cry no more. I don't want this to hurt me in a bad place. I want to learn from it. And the only thing I can really say is that it's really sad that some of the names that they were calling, there was no family there for them.
Which is why these words are so important.
Now, there is a candlelight vigil set for tonight here at 7 o'clock, and everyone is invited to come out and honor these people and pay their respects.
Dramatic video posted to Snapchat captured the very first gunfire inside Pulse Nightclub.
Kent is joining us now to show us this chilling video. Kent.
Mary and Tom, a young woman named Amanda Alvear was Snapchatting when the shooting erupted, and a friend later posted that video to Facebook. And we're about to play this for you. You should know 2 things. The people in the club were not immediately alarmed when they heard these gunshots. They thought that they were pops, they were the sound of the music. You should also know that Miss Alvear did not survive.
I've got to tell you, the outpouring of community support has been nothing short of phenomenal. And there are little things that you don't think of. The first responders who are here, the police agencies that are here investigating, combing the nightclub for forensic evidence. You know, they're here for very long hours. And the communities come together to provide some of the basic creature needs: food, water, things like pizza, sandwiches, and what have you. Ace Hardware, Publix, and pizza joints have all gotten together to feed these folks. I talked to one gentleman from Ace Hardware who's volunteering his time and asked him what motivated him.
Here in Orlando, we're just all one big happy family. When you see something like this happen, you want to do whatever you can to help. And it's just the fact it's just food and water, but whatever helps, we're going to try to do it for them.
The people who are at the Orlando Regional Medical Center had to deal with a mass trauma. They had so many victims that they had to care for. They didn't know what they were up against. At UF Health, they have a trauma center. Channel 4's Kamasi Aaron's covering that part of the story.
Dealing with more than 100 patients in the trauma unit is hard for Dr. Andy Kerwin to imagine. He leads the UF Health Trauma Department and says he's never come close to having to treat so many patients like trauma doctors in Orlando had to do Sunday morning.
Take a look at this blueprint right here. There are 2 doors leading in and out of the club. This is Pulse Nightclub, but it's the location of those doors that has some people worried. In our area, Metro Nightclub in Riverside has become a staple in the LGBT community, just like Pulse, and the owners say they're now making changes to their safety protocol in response to the violence. Channel 4's Crystal Moyer and our crime and safety analyst Gil Smith toured the club to pinpoint its safety features.
When you first approach a club, one thing you want to look out for is the no parking signs at the entrance.
So if there's an emergency, it will be a clear path.
This here is a separate room, a dining area, and also a bar. So you see here, there are 2 exits. There's an exit there. I went back there, it's clear, the door is open.
As has happened in the aftermath of other mass murders, the killings in Orlando are renewing discussions about guns in our country. As we heard from Chris Parento, Omar Mateen, who was known to the FBI, legally purchased the 2 guns he used in the massacre and was licensed here in Florida.
The I-Team found nearly 2 million firearm licenses are active in our state. I-Team investigator Lindsey Gardner combed through data from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and uncovered a gun buying trend.
The I-Team staff spent the day analyzing data from Florida, Georgia, and nationally with the ATF. And what we found is gun manufacturing in America continues to spike, including the production of semi-automatic rifles that have been used in recent mass shootings. The AR-15 style rifle, often the weapon of choice in recent mass shootings in America. The FBI confirmed a version of it was used by the nightclub terrorist in Orlando. Before Sunday's attack, there was San Bernardino, California, the Colorado Movie Theater massacre, and Newtown, Connecticut.
Thousands of people standing together in Orlando, lighting candles for the victims of the worst shooting rampage in American history.
I came to tell you that God is love. Repeat after me. God is love.
Emotional moments bringing together a community that has lost so much. 49 people gunned down by this man. Now we're learning the shooter had been inside Pulse nightclub before. We have two big updates on the tragedy in Orlando tonight. Just about an hour ago, we learned President Obama will travel to Orlando Thursday to offer condolences to the victims' families and stand in solidarity with the community.
Also tonight, new chilling information is coming out about the killer, 29-year-old Omar Mateen. The Orlando Sentinel is reporting that at least 4 regular customers at Pulse nightclub say they had seen Mateen there before, maybe a dozen times. Some said he would sit in the corner and drink by himself. Other times he would be loud and belligerent.
There are also reports that Mateen may have scoped out downtown Disney as a potential target back in April, and the Los Angeles Times is reporting tonight Mateen used a gay dating and chat app. The FBI was made aware of that by other people who used the app. Also new tonight, the Orlando Fire Department released audio of some of its scanner traffic from the early moments of its response.
We've got some walking wounded, some greens that we're going to start getting off the scene as well, but we're possibly up to 15 remaining in the club they're barricaded in.
Some of those people who were barricaded were in the club's restroom. That's where they escaped when the gunshots rang out. You can see in this floor plan of the nightclub, the restrooms are on the left side of your screen, right near the main bar.
We're staying on top of this big national story, both from Orlando and here in our area.
We want to show you some new crime scene photos from behind police lines that we just obtained. The first photo is of the victims' cars that still remain here on Orange Avenue. At some point, family members of the victims will be asked to come and retrieve these vehicles and the victims' belongings from inside. As you walk closer to the scene, you get a better idea of just how meticulous the crime scene forensic process is. This is a 3D imaging device which is used both inside and outside the club to reenact and recreate the events digitally as they happen. The FBI has hired a fencing company. They've enclosed the entire club, and plastic has been put up on the fencing, so when police eventually open Orange Avenue, no one will be able to look inside past that plastic. But I want you to look closely at this final picture and focus on those orange flags that you can just barely see behind the plastic. Every one of those flags represents a place where bullet casings were found. We know hundreds of shots were fired in the exchange with Omar Mateen.
There were close to 10,000 people here, and you could see so many different emotions tonight. Looking in people's eyes, I noticed the pain, but above all, I saw strength, I saw love, and I saw compassion during the most difficult time this city has ever seen. One by one, people from near and far came to add to this memorial. It grew by the minute, just like the crowd on the Dr. Phillips Center's front lawn. The vigil started as a somber ceremony as they read the names of the 49 lives lost.
It's hard, but we have to keep our faith and move forward.
But it quickly grew into a showing of strength like no other.
We're going to stand up and say, this is our city. We're taking it back, and we're going to be stronger.
Orlando strong. We stand with Orlando. Orlando United. These are all phrases that you're hearing in the grocery stores. They're seen on digital billboards on the side of the Amway Center here in Orlando. You see that on the digital billboard. United, we stand together. But behind all of that, the reality is there are many people, many in the LGBT community, who are scared. They are fearful. There is one local community group who is trying to address that. Almost 48 hours after 49 people perished in a hail of gunfire. The fear is raw and it is real. Some members of Orlando's LGBT community afraid to go out in public because of who they are.
I'm actually scared of, going anywhere because of this have happened.
Just within the hour, the city of Orlando released the final name on the list of the 49 victims. Geraldo Ortiz Jimenez was 25 years old. The victims all range in age from 18 to 50. One of them lived here in Jacksonville.
29-year-old Darrell Burt is among the 49 people killed. Those who knew him are remembering him as a caring person who gave back to the community. Channel 4's Ethan Calloway is joining us live with more on who Darrell Burt was. Ethan?
Well, Burt worked here at Kaiser University. We know that as a financial aid officer. He primarily dealt with military members and veterans, and we're told that today those who knew him were remembering him. On this Monday evening, the Jacksonville Jaycees are coming together for their monthly meeting. But this particular meeting takes on a different tone.
It's been tough for all of us, and we're just trying to bring everybody together so that way we can honor Darrell and honor his family in the right way.
Sean DeVries describes Darrell Burt as a rising star within the Jaycees. Burt joined the Young Professionals group late last year. He had already co-chaired one of the organization's charity projects, a clothing drive for the homeless. Burt was inside Pulse Nightclub early Sunday morning when the shooting happened. With his loss, those who worked with him in the Jaycees are working to honor his memory the best way they can.
Just a while ago, a vigil for the Orlando victims wrapped up at a local restaurant. Hamburger Mary's is using money collected tonight to donate to a GoFundMe account set up for the victims' families. Channel 4's Francesca Amaker was there. She's joining us live. Francesca, tell us about the strong message you heard conveyed at this event.
It was such a beautiful event. You saw tears, you saw laughter, you saw people smiling and coming together. The big message here was it wasn't just about the LGBT community. This was about the celebration and the pride that every single community needs to have. And tonight they ended up raising more than $1,000 for Pulse victims.
Somewhere over the rainbow.
They say without the rain, there would be no rainbow. And Monday evening, after the storm of hate that claimed 49 lives at a gay nightclub, patrons at Hamburger Mary's made it clear that the sun would only shine brighter.
We have taken a huge blow to the face, and it's been a huge hit, but we'll rise up from this.
Sunday morning, community activist Carissa Wade says her phone was ringing off the hook as performers were frantic to see if their loved ones were okay. Fortunately, many of them made it out the club safely, but others did not, which is why this community is coming together with songs of strength.
We're learning more tonight about the background of Omar Mateen. We know he had been on an FBI watch list in recent years twice, but was eventually dropped from the list.
Then recently he was legally able to purchase the guns he used in the terror attack. Kent's joining us now with what an ex-FBI agent is revealing about why people land on the Bureau's watch list and why they can be dropped from it. Kent.
Yeah, the fact that he was on a terror watch list until about 2 years ago and bought guns around 2 weeks ago, that concerns a lot of people. However, like a lot of law enforcement agencies, when the FBI determines they have no evidence to keep looking into someone, they drop their case. We now know Omar Mateen was interviewed by the FBI twice, in 2013 and 2014, about potential ties to terrorism. Even at one point, he was put on a terrorism watch list. Channel 4's Chris Parento also reported that Mateen made social media posts following September 11th that were anti-American statements and seemed unsympathetic about the loss of life. Today, FBI Director James Comey addressed this, saying they first learned about Mateen from a coworker.
You're looking live at downtown Orlando, where a memorial is growing for the 49 victims who were killed yesterday in the Pulse nightclub shooting. More and more people coming by and placing candles, honoring the memories of those 49 people who were killed and the 53 people, most of whom remained in the hospital being treated. Also tonight, there's solidarity with Orlando's victims being demonstrated in world capitals. Soon after the Eiffel Tower lit up in Euro 2016 colors, it radiated with rainbow flag colors in honor of those who died and those who were wounded. The display lasted more than 30 minutes. A vigil was also held in London. People waved rainbow flags and released balloons to show their support for the victims.